Hi everyone, and thanks for joining me here on Herzography. In this video, I want to talk to you all about one of my favorite topics, and that is how to make the most out of any location, wherever you are, whether you've traveled or you're just driving down the road. So stick with me and let me talk to you all about that in this video. All right, so the first thing that I do is that, like I was just driving down the road and I came across this cool little waterfall. And you've probably seen one of my previous videos where I say practice, practice, practice. And it's always great to find these little spots, whether they're close by, to be able to practice with your camera, practice techniques, practice settings on the camera. But let's talk about how to make the most out of a location. So what I do is I'll come into a location and I'll start to not hold my camera, but I'll be holding my cell phone. And I'll take my cell phone and I'll start to look at different angles, and I'll crouch down low and I'll get up high and I'll move around, and if I can, get around to the side or the back, and use my phone or a compass to take a look at the lighting, what the direction is. Because sometimes I might say, well, the light is here and I'd rather have the light over there, and will it be there and around what time? And there's different applications like photo pills that can help you with that. So I'll kind of scout the area. I'll even take pictures with my cell phone, because the cell phone has the advantage, well, many of them that have multiple lenses, so that way you can check out different focal lengths. I've talked before about using a little scope, which can be very handy, but now with the advent of the cell phone going up to such a huge magnification, sometimes that can be an advantage, just having that, because then you can even snap an image and take a look at it and determine if you like the composition. So that's what I'll wind up doing, and seeing if certain areas work for me and how close I want to be, because I might see something in this waterfall here that maybe this 80 to 20 isn't just going to do it for me. I want to put on a longer lens. And so that's how I first approach a scene like that, and those are the things that I start with. Most of us, as I began learning photography a long time ago, I would get to a location and, oh my gosh, I never saw anything so beautiful. It was my first time there. So I'm grabbing the tripod and setting everything up, and I just start shooting. And for the most part, that's really a mistake and not the way I would recommend doing it. I would recommend, as I mentioned before, getting to an area, taking your time, evaluating, looking around and deciding where's the best vantage point, and looking at composition and foreground, background, all these different things that are just going to help you make a much more exciting image and enjoying the overall experience. So when I get to a location and deciding which lens to use, oh my gosh, it can be so difficult, because do I want to use a wide angle lens because I need to capture everything at one time? Do I want to use a shorter focal length lens because I want to take multiple images and do a panorama, so that way it becomes a sharper image? And I talk all about that in one of my previous videos. But there's so many different things to decide on, because there's different ways to accomplish the same thing, but so much depends upon what equipment you have with you. Maybe you've decided just to go on an outing and you've taken one lens with you. So you have less to decide then, and just need to focus more on different techniques to be able to capture the image that you're looking for. So I take a look at all the different angles. I know sometimes it's not really comfortable, but you might take a look at a higher angle. Maybe I have to climb up onto a rock, or a lower angle where, yeah, you might have to put on some knee pads or take a little, you know, something so you're not kneeling on rocks to make it a little more comfortable. But getting that right position for your composition is really important, and it is something that, you know, you might just want to take a little extra time and not just always set the tripod up where it's going to be most comfortable for you, because that just might not be the right composition or the right level of putting your tripod at to get a really nice composition. So when I got here earlier, I took a look at this area. I really like what's happening with those bulrushes in the back there. Here, let me just, I'll zoom in on those a bit. So I like what's happening back there with those bulrushes, and I like the little bit of the waterfall that I'm seeing here. I'm trying to decide. I took a couple of images with my cell phone at those bulrushes really close. I love the reflection and the simplicity. This scene might have a little bit too much going on in it. And one thing that I have found is that, you know, I've seen some photographers that will shoot an image like this and then wait till they get back, they get into Lightroom, and then they'll decide, well, yeah, I like that one area, I'm going to crop it. Well, cropping is okay to a certain degree, but realize that as you're cropping your image, you're going to be losing resolution. Now, yes, you might be able to gain some resolution back with some of the things that Lightroom and other programs can do, but I've always been under the instruction from my instructors to try to get it right in the camera first. That could have just been something from film days, but I still believe that trying to get it as right as you can in the camera first not only leads to less production or post-editing time, but it's going to lead you to better image quality, because then you're going to be cropping less and you're really going to be leaning into the image and getting into the exact scene and composition that you want to get into. Because you never know, you might crop into an image and say, oh, if I just use a longer lens, I might have moved over a little bit because I didn't see everything that I'm seeing now on the big screen. So I encourage you, if possible, to carry a little longer lens, so that way you can crop in and get into the landscape a little bit closer if that's the look or that's the subject that you're looking for. On the other hand, a wide-angle lens is wonderful to have in case there's something in the foreground and you want to get that in, as well as what's in the distance. Those things might not be possible to do with a nifty 50 or, you know, a standard zoom lens. So your lens selection becomes difficult because now you're deciding how much weight to carry, because you're not exactly sure which lens you're going to need to use. So there are trade-offs in carrying a bunch of equipment as opposed to a light load. All right, so I've taken a couple of images that I'll show you now. Right now I'm at 70 millimeter. It's very pretty. I really like what I'm seeing here with this little waterfall, but I think now I want to get in a little closer. So I'm going to change my lens, and I'll show you my method here for lens changing. Of course, I'm turning the camera off. I'm going to loosen my cap on the back here. Taking my polarizing filter and just taking it right off one lens, popping it on the other. Nice and convenient. Okay, so I'm taking one lens off, putting it in here, putting the cap on, and putting this on now. had a little issue here because the foot on the lens was hitting part on the tripod, and I didn't hear it click into place. So I just had to loosen that up a bit, but not a problem. I also wanted to show you that when I put my lens down, you can see that I put it in my apron over here, which I think is really important to have. The apron that I highly recommend is one that has a divider. It has 3 sections. And the reason for that is, as you can see, I put my lens in here. Well, I don't want the lens dropping on my eyeglasses or getting in the way of maybe some filters that I might have out. And having those 3 separate sections, once again, I find to be really important instead of just one big cavity. I'll have a link for this, and it's on my my gear page. They're very inexpensive. They have Velcro here if you need it to make your tripod go out real wide, you know, or you can scooch it all the way up. But just, I found them to be just an invaluable tool that I use year after year. I've tried the one that has just a single cavity. I've got 3 or 4 of them. They're in my garage. I don't use them for anything because I found that once I wanted to put a lens and, you know, my eyeglasses in here, it just didn't make sense that everything was crammed together. So that's why I use one like this. So let's take a look here. I'm going to see what I've got. This is kind of what I saw with my iPhone when I was shooting, and I zoomed right in. I thought, wow, that is really neat. And really think that, you know, once again, an image within an image. You know, you can use a long lens and start to capture these individual compositions, details, like you would at a wedding. You're shooting just the rings, or you're shooting the invitation, or different things like that. These details are important by themselves, let alone, you know, making up the whole landscape. So I encourage you to kind of dive in, and when you get to an area, don't be so quick just to take that one overall view, but to look at other compositions to make the most out of that scene. All right, so I'm back. I put the long lens on, the 100 to 400, and I've turned the camera to be in vertical mode. It's really nice because you can do that with some of these lenses that have a collar. So I really like what I'm seeing here. I've zoomed all the way in. Kind of looks nice with the waterfall right there, but composition wise, I'm not sure that I'm really liking that in the image. And as I go all the way into 400, I think I really like that a little bit better. Just keeping a little bit of that reflection in, going for like a 1/3, 2/3, and now this composition is much nicer. Now I'm at a 40th of a second. I don't don't know, maybe I'll try a much longer shutter speed and see how I do with that. I'll go to a 1/2 second. See if maybe I can smooth out the water a little bit. And the bag that I'm using for all these filters is by Mindshift. I'll have a link to it in the show notes. I have found that all the different bags that I've used, this one's probably been the handiest. I've got a lot of different ones in the garage. My wife would attest to that. I've probably tested them all out, but I like the fact that this will clip on like so. If it starts to rain, I just throw the cover on it, but otherwise I can get to all my filters right here. This is not going to affect the stability of the tripod at all. So let's take a look, you know, once again, making the most out of any location. So that kind of smoothed the water down a little bit. Now, one thing that we can do is we could shoot this in infrared because it is nice and green. It's all in shadow though, and infrared normally does better with green grass and green trees and green leaves, anything that gives off chlorophyll will turn white. But experimenting is always cool to do. You know, you've already gone to the location. Let's try to make the most out of it. Think out of the box on what we might be able to achieve. Okay. I'm just not sure. You know, we'll have to see after I convert it to black and white if it's really that exciting, or if it's better just to take the color image and convert it. The infrared has the added benefit when you're shooting and you have the sky in the image, that the sky turns very dark and water turns very dark as long as it's in the sunlight. So I'm not sure if I'm liking what I see here, but once again, it's always great to try new things and see how it turns out, record the exposures down for the next time. I will evaluate the scene and decide what kind of filter I would like to use depending upon what effect, reflection, neutral density for really long exposures, just all sorts of different filters, maybe a glow effect. There's so many different things to choose from, and I'll be going through a lot of those different filter choices in another video real soon. Because this is the part of the process where your preparation kind of meets creativity. You know, different filters will produce different effects. Your bare camera and lens is going to be very nice, and you'll get very nice images, but depending upon what creativity you're looking for, what level of creativity, there's only so much you can do in post-production. And you know what? It's really nice to be able to take an image, get it the way you want it in camera, and then post it. As well as not having to think, oh, in post-production I want to do this, 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 and this. I would rather spend more time out in the field using the different filters and creating that image that I have in my mind than doing it back on a computer. Then besides filters, there's always going to be, is there an advanced photographic technique that I want to use? Do I want to use focus stacking? What are the pros and cons of doing that? Perhaps an HDR image, the pros and cons of doing that, and if you're able to or not, which we'll talk about at another time. Shooting a panorama. Now, a panorama only has to be 2 images. It doesn't always have to be like the one that I have been showing before that's over 50 images. So maybe you've only taken out, you know, just a standard lens, and maybe you want to do a pano with 2 images side by side. That's great. It's just deciding beforehand and then which filter to use, how to set it up, and we'll go through all that in another video just so that you're prepared. Because doing these things really helps change your image from just another landscape image to something that's a little bit more creative. You know, we see beautiful images all the time, but are there certain things that you could do with a filter? Like, look at these images, look at what you're shooting and what you've shot, and think about, well, could I have used maybe a glow filter, or maybe a dream effect filter, or something like that, maybe a long exposure and shot it for 30 seconds. Would that have advanced your creativity in, you know, what you're thinking about in your mind to what you're seeing in front of you? So after I've been to a location, I'll take a look at the whole scene. I'll walk around and say, well, is this a location that I want to come back to? You know, hopefully it's a location that you can come back to and it's not a once-in-a-lifetime trip, in which case that's a whole nother story. But if this is a location that you'd like to come back to, make some notes. Take some images with your cell phone. If you're fortunate enough to have a camera that takes GPS, great, so you already have that location measurement. My camera doesn't, so I'll always take out a cell phone not only to get the GPS location and so it shows up in iPhoto, but of some other, maybe I've run out of time and maybe there's some other views that I would like to shoot the next time I come here. So I will take some quick cell phone images at different magnifications in different areas, so that way I'll be prepared for the next time coming back. I'll pull out a compass or use the one in my cell phone and say, okay, yeah, I'd like to come back, you know, late in the afternoon or maybe earlier in the morning, so we don't have this bright sunlight or on a cloudy day. So that's my process for when I get to a location and making the most out of that location. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, perhaps picked up a tip or two. Give me a like, subscribe to the channel so that way you're notified of new videos coming up real soon. Bye for now and get out and shoot.